17th of November would be the date for the 11th election in Australian history. Previously, Prime Minister Stanley Bruce had capitalised on the booming economy to drastically grow Australia, both in economy and in population. This in return rewarded him with a massive election win in 1925, and with this he continued his policies into the second half of the 1920s. In 1927, work on the brand new capital of Canberra would finally be completed after a large delay due to the First World War, and on the 9th of May, Parliament would officially move into their new Parliament building. This would be a huge relief for the Victorian Parliament, who for the past 27 years had been forced to use the nearby Royal Exhibition building while their own Parliament building held federal politicians. Bruce's win in 1925 was also brought about by his attempt to crack down on militant union action. The scope of Bruce's win caused him to take a much harder stance on unions, requesting that economic prosperity be considered a factor over worker prosperity in industrial dispute cases. While no friend to industrial owners, Bruce was very concerned about the effects the industrial disputes were having on the now slowing economy. However, as time went on, perceptions started to change that the economic problems were the cause of the industrial disputes, rather than the other way around. Another problem with Bruce's economy was the recovery of European powers industries, particularly in agriculture, who began to outsupply Australian producers, causing a decline in Australia's trade as the country was drowned out. In 1927, Treasurer and Country Party leader Earle Page brought forward the coalition's first deficit, and as the election came around, Australia was finding itself in an increasing large amount of debt. Along with the growing debt, the early signs of a recession were growing around the world. Bruce's response to this was to centralise Australia's economy by taking away a lot of the financial independence the individual states had been experiencing up to that point. However, despite Bruce's efforts, investment in Australia was declining due to the economic slowdown and increasing industrial disputes. Meanwhile, on the other side of Parliament, a new face was emerging in the Labor Party, James Henry Scullin. He was originally elected in 1910 for the rural seat of Corangamite, and later elected to replace deceased Labor leader Frank Tudor's inner city seat of Yarra. He was an excellent debater and had won a lot of support within Labor, as well as the public as a whole. In 1927, he became deputy leader under Charlton, only to replace him a year later after Charlton resigned, marking an end to the epic moustache era of Labor. Scullin would begin a big campaign around the country, attempting to win back regions that had not voted Labor in years, even going into the countryside to counter the increasing urbanisation nature of his party. He actively campaigned on the shortcomings of the coalition's economic decisions, which Scullin had called a recipe for disaster due to the large amount of foreign debt they were taking on. And the winner was Stanley Bruce and the coalition with 42 seats, and a two-party preferred of 51.6. However, with the loss of 9 seats, Labor was now back in striking distance of taking back government. Scullin had brought Labor back to 31 seats, with 48.4% of the two-party preferred. However, most people saw Labor's gains as a protest of the coalition, as opposed to an approval of Labor. Bruce was also facing a protest within his own coalition, as seen with the election of Percy Stewart of the Country Progressive Party, a breakaway party from the Country Party. And as the economic woes increase, Bruce would quickly find himself in a lot more trouble. Come back next time for the election of 1929.